State is doing really well. Only 2 active cases of COVID at the moment as we speak this morning, but still very cautious easing of restrictions from your government as a first step, only allowing outdoor dining, for example, at cafes and restaurants. Can you give our viewers a sense of your thinking on that?
Yeah, look, we only have 2 active cases here in South Australia. Kieran, you're 100% right on that. We do have the least restrictive sort of efforts on closing down the economy on other states around the country, and we are taking further cautious steps this coming week, in fact tomorrow. So as of tomorrow, we'll be easing some of the restrictions on sporting training in South Australia, also opening up for regional travel, and of course we've said that it's going to be possible for caravan and camping in South Australia. So I think that will be first in the nation. We are doing well in South Australia. We've only got one shot to get this right, and we're pretty happy with where we are at the moment. But we want to get people back to work. We want to get them back to work as quickly but as safely as possible.
And things like cafes and restaurants, how do you see that unfolding over the next few weeks? Because as I said, it's up to 10 patrons outdoor dining, but would you be moving over the next week or 2 or 3 as you see fit, as your advisors suggest?
Yeah, well, SA Health are hoping to have sort of 3 to 4 weeks between lifting of the restrictions so that they have that ability to, if you like, check on what new infections might come from those eased restrictions. So we'll just wait to see what happens there. Obviously, hospitality is one of those areas which in South Australia employs a lot of people, so want to see them get back to work. At the moment, the National Cabinet framework is for 10 people. That's not going to keep many of them viable. And so we're going to be working with them, looking to raise those restrictions or lift those restrictions from the 8th of June. So we're sitting down with them at the moment, and I think we'll be able to get some pretty good protocols in place so that we can get back to dining in our cafes, restaurants, and also dining rooms in pubs from the 8th of June.
And what's the Prime Minister's pitch been to the states in terms of easing restrictions? The National Cabinet has worked really well in the face of this crisis. Obviously, quite clearly, he wants to focus on jobs now on the way out. What's his pitch to the states?
Did you say the Prime Minister there, Kieran?
Yeah, the Prime Minister's message to the states in terms of easing restrictions.
Yeah, look, the Prime Minister is very keen, like we all are, to get our economy up and running as quickly as possible. I think he said on Friday we can't stay under the doona the entire time, although it's pretty chilly here in Adelaide at the moment. I think a lot of people would like to stay under the doona for as long as possible. But no, look, we've got to get our economy stood up. In South Australia, we've been sending strong messages to the people of our state that we do need to get people back to work, but we've got to do it in a safe way. And I think the Prime Minister understands that different states, different territories are at different parts of this overall pandemic, but we are in a good position in South Australia. States like South Australia and Western Australia have had low numbers, and so in many ways I think we can lead the way, but we've got to do it in a safe way.
And are you taking a similar view to WA when it comes to the hard border? Will you keep those travel restrictions in place like WA for the foreseeable future?
Look, we do have a border in place. It's not quite as strong as the Northern Territory in Western Australia, where you've got to have 2 weeks of supervised quarantine in some of those jurisdictions. In South Australia, we are obviously letting transport in and out of South Australia. Those people that live in border communities don't have quite the same restrictions, but there's still quite a lot of people that are going into isolation, but they can do that at home. They will be supervised by SAPOL, so they will receive a visit from the police to make sure that they're doing the right thing. But we've been really, really happy with the compliance with these restrictions or these imposed restrictions, and that's going to be in place for the foreseeable future. We don't have people returning from overseas now without that 2-week quarantine, and our biggest source of new infections is going to come from interstate. It's going to enable us to get our economy internally up and running and more people employed if we can keep those numbers low. So for the foreseeable future, we'll be keeping that border in place.
When it comes to the footy, when is the AFL going to be back, and when is the footy going to be back in your state?
Well, we are starting training for all sports that are outdoor as of tomorrow, and that's in groups of up to 10. So footy clubs are going to have to sort of break their team up into groups of up to 10 for training, but we'll get training underway as quickly as possible. Our own local competition could get going as soon as the end of next month. AFL, we are still working through the details with the AFL, and our Chief Public Health Officer in South Australia, Professor Nicholas Spurrier, is working with a subcommittee of the AHPPC. I think they're really towards the end of their focus on this issue, and I think that they'll be giving some clear direction to the AFL really soon. We're a real sporting state here, Kieran, as I'm sure you would be aware. My team, Port Adelaide, is top of the ladder, the AFL ladder. They've been in that position for 7 weeks, which is very good as a footy fan. But we'd like to see some action. We'd like to see them out playing as quickly as possible. So training to resume as of Monday, and then we'll hopefully get our games back up and running next month. But we'll do it in a safe way, in consultation with the major codes.
The Adelaide Oval, one of the most beautiful grounds on the planet, and obviously you want to get footy back there as soon as you can, but will you allow other sort of AFL states and teams to travel into South Australia, or will it only be a one-way street that your teams will go to Victoria and New South Wales, for example?
It would be great to see the Adelaide Oval up and running again. It is a beautiful oval. Look, I think it really depends on when games resume and what the level of community transmission and new cases are in those other states. So if it was up and running today, well, I think South Australian teams would be playing those first games interstate. If it happens later, community transmission comes down, it could be a different model. So we're just working through all of those options at the moment, Kieran.
And my final question to you, Premier, this morning is the National Cabinet, as we said, it's been an effective model. Are you confident we can, as a nation, get to this end of the COVID-safe economy by July, just a couple of months away?
I think we can, Kieran. All the leaders on the National Cabinet, they've all agreed that July is when we want to be in our COVID-safe economy. That gives us 3 tranches or 3 steps to getting there. That was outlined on Friday. I think people are really happy to have some certainty. Obviously, we're going to continue to work with the different industry sectors on how we can get them up and running as quickly as possible. But all of us agree we want to get our economy moving as quickly as possible. We want to get Australia back working, and we plan to do that in July of this year.
Premier, appreciate your time and all the best to you and the family on this Mother's Day. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Kieran.